I never believed a wedding day could feel like a funeral. Until that morning. The room was filled with white flowers, soft music, and smiling faces, yet my heart was pounding like it was trying to escape my chest. My hands were shaking so badly I had to hold them together. And then, before anyone could stop me, the words flew out of my mouth. Please. Don't let this wedding continue. Everyone froze. Some people laughed nervously. Others turned to stare at me like I had lost my mind. The bride looked at me with confusion, her smile slowly fading. Someone whispered, "She's old, she doesn't know what she's saying." But I knew exactly what I was saying. Because in a few hours, when the music stopped and screaming filled the air, they would all remember my warning. And they would wish they had listened. Before I go any further, let me ask you something. If you enjoy emotional stories that keep you thinking long after the video ends, please subscribe to this channel, like this video, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss another powerful story. And please tell me in the comments which part of the country you are watching from. I truly want to know who is here with me today. Now listen carefully. The moment that broke, everything happened so fast, yet it felt like time slowed down. White chairs lined the hall. Cameras were ready. The bride stood at the front, glowing, holding her flowers tightly. People whispered about how perfect everything looked. But I couldn't breathe. Across the room, near the door, I saw a face that dragged a terrible memory out of the darkest part of my past. My chest tightened. My ears started ringing. My legs felt weak. That face should not have been there. I stood up so suddenly my chair fell backward. The noise echoed, but no one stopped me. I pointed, my voice cracking as I shouted for everything to stop. That was when the room went silent. The music cut off. All eyes turned to me. Anger, embarrassment, and shame filled the air. Someone rushed over and grabbed my arm, whispering sharply that I was ruining the day. But I couldn't stop. I tried to explain, but the words came out tangled. The bride shook her head, tears filling her eyes. "Please," she said softly, "not today." And that broke my heart. Because if I stayed quiet, something far worse would happen. Weeks before that day, I already felt something was wrong. Everyone else was excited, busy planning dresses, food, and decorations. I watched quietly, listening, remembering. Age has taken many things from me, but it has given me one gift: memory. And memory never forgets the truth. When I first heard about the marriage, I smiled, but my heart felt heavy. Each time I saw the man she planned to marry, the feeling grew stronger. There was something about him that did not sit right with me. Not his smile. Not his manners. Something deeper. Something familiar. I told myself I was just afraid of change. I told myself I was overthinking. But every time he spoke, every time he laughed, a voice inside me screamed that I had seen this before. One evening, alone in my room, the memory finally came back fully. A memory I had buried for years because it hurt too much to carry. A face. A voice. A night that ended in fear and silence. A person who disappeared and was never spoken of again. I sat on my bed in the dark, my heart racing, realizing the truth I didn't want to accept. The man walking toward my granddaughter was connected to that nightmare. I tried to speak up. I tried to warn them gently at first. I was told to rest. I was told not to stress myself. I was told I was imagining things. "No," I whispered to myself the night before the wedding. "I am not imagining this." That morning, I made a promise. Even if they hated me, even if they never spoke to me again, I would not stay silent. Back in the wedding hall, the pastor lifted his hand to continue the ceremony. People were already trying to ignore me, trying to move on. Then I saw him move. Slow steps. Calm smile. Eyes locked on the bride. Fear rushed through me like fire. I opened my mouth to say the truth. To say the name I remembered. To expose what no one else could see. But before the words fully left my lips, he suddenly turned and ran straight toward the front. Someone screamed. Chairs crashed. The bride dropped her flowers. And in that moment of chaos, as terror filled her eyes, she finally understood. I had been trying to save her. And what happened next would change our family forever. The screaming did not stop. It spread through the hall like fire. People stood up all at once. Chairs fell. Someone shouted for security. Someone else yelled the bride's name. The music speaker crashed to the floor with a loud bang, and the soft wedding song died in the middle of its note. I stood frozen. My eyes followed him as he ran. For a second, everyone thought he was running to the bride. But then he changed direction. He grabbed something from his jacket. And that was when fear truly took over the room. "Get down!" someone screamed. The bride screamed too. Not a loud scream at first, but a broken one, like her breath had been stolen. Her flowers slipped from her hands and hit the floor. White petals scattered everywhere. People pushed each other, trying to escape. Some hid behind tables. Others rushed toward the exit. A child started crying loudly, calling for their mother. My legs finally moved. I rushed forward, shouting his words from years ago, words I never thought I would hear again. My voice sounded strange, like it did not belong to me. He stopped. For a moment, everything stopped. His eyes met mine. And in that look, I knew something terrible had already happened long before today. Security rushed in. People grabbed him. Someone knocked him to the ground. The object fell from his hand and slid across the floor. It was not what everyone feared. But it was bad enough. Police sirens began to wail in the distance. The wedding was over. Not with music. Not with joy. But with shaking hands, crying faces, and questions no one was ready to ask. Later, after the hall was cleared, after the guests were sent home in silence, after the bride was wrapped in a blanket and guided into a quiet room, everyone turned to look at me. No one laughed now. No one whispered about age. Their eyes asked the same question. "How did you know?" I sat down slowly, my body heavy, my heart hurting. "I tried to tell you," I said quietly. "I tried before today." No one interrupted me this time. So I went back. Back to the beginning. Long before the wedding plans. Long before the engagement ring. Long before the smiles and promises. It started the first day I met him. Everyone else saw a polite man. Soft-spoken. Respectful. Always smiling. He shook my hand gently and called me, "Ma'am." But when he looked at me, his smile faded for just a second. And in that second I saw fear. Not fear of me. Fear of being recognized. That night, I could not sleep. I kept seeing his face mixed with another face from my past. A younger face. Angrier. Desperate. I told myself to stop. I told myself I was being unfair. But then small things started happening. I would ask him where he grew up. He gave one answer. Another day, he gave a different one. I asked about his parents. He changed the subject. I mentioned a town name casually, one connected to my old memory. His hand shook. No one else noticed. I did. I tried to talk to my family again. They sighed. "Why can't you just be happy for her? Please don't bring bad energy into this. This wedding has already cost so much." Those words hurt more than they knew. Because money was not what I was worried about. It was blood. The memory that haunted me came back clearer each night. Years ago, there was a man who destroyed lives and vanished. The police searched. People talked. Then silence. The case was never solved. But I never forgot his eyes. And those eyes were now looking at my granddaughter with love. Or something that pretended to be love. The night before the wedding, I finally found proof. Not from the police. Not from the internet. From an old box under my bed. Inside were yellow papers, letters, and a single photo I kept hidden for decades. When I placed the photo beside the engagement picture, my hands started shaking. It was him. Older. Smarter. But still him. I cried quietly so no one would hear me. I knew then that if this wedding happened, something terrible would follow. Maybe not that day. Maybe not that year. But it would happen. That was why I stood up. That was why I shouted. That was why I embarrassed myself in front of everyone. Now, sitting in that quiet room after the chaos, I reached into my bag and pulled out the photo. The room went silent again. The bride stared at it, her lips trembling. Her mother covered her mouth. One of the men in the room whispered, "That's him." Police officers took the photo. They asked me questions. Many questions. I answered them all. Hours passed. Finally, one officer returned and said something that made my heart sink even deeper. "This man has been using different names for years." The bride began to cry again. I reached for her hand, but she pulled away. "I loved him," she whispered. "I trusted him." "I know," I said softly. She looked at me with pain and anger mixed together. "Why didn't you stop it sooner?" That question cut me deep. "I tried," I said. "I truly tried." Night fell. The house was quiet. But my heart was not. Because I knew the truth was not fully out yet. The man had been caught. But his secrets were not finished. As the police prepared to take him away, he suddenly turned and looked straight at me. He smiled. A slow, cold smile. And he said something so low only I could hear it. "This isn't over." My blood ran cold. Because I knew he was right. And as the door closed behind him, I realized something even worse. The wedding was stopped. But the nightmare had only just begun. That night, no one slept. The house that was supposed to be filled with laughter after a wedding became heavy with silence. Lights stayed on in every room. Phones kept buzzing with missed calls and messages from people asking questions no one knew how to answer. I sat alone in a corner of the living room, my hands folded tightly in my lap. My body was tired, but my mind would not rest. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that smile again. The slow smile he gave me before they took him away. "This isn't over." Those words kept repeating in my head. The bride sat on the couch, wrapped in a blanket, staring at the floor. Her eyes were red and empty, like she was still trying to wake up from a bad dream. Every now and then, she would whisper his name without realizing it, then cover her mouth as if she had said something wrong. Her mother walked back and forth, crying 1 minute, angry the next. She blamed herself. She blamed me. She blamed the world. "If only we had listened," she kept saying. "If only." No one finished that sentence. Later that night, the police returned. They asked more questions. About the past. About the photo. About the memory I had carried for so long. I told them everything I could remember, even the parts that hurt to say out loud. One officer looked at me carefully and said, "You may have saved more than one life today." But those words did not bring me peace. Because I knew something they didn't. Men like him do not stop easily. When the officers left, we tried to calm the bride enough to get her to lie down. She refused to sleep in her room. She said it smelled like him. She said she could still hear his voice. So she slept on the couch, holding a pillow like it was the only thing keeping her together. Sometime after midnight, my phone rang. The number was unknown. I stared at it for a long moment before answering. "Hello," I said softly. There was silence. Then breathing. Slow. Careful. My heart started pounding. "I warned you," a voice whispered. I froze. The voice was distorted, but I recognized the tone. Cold. Confident. "You should have stayed quiet." My hands started shaking so badly I almost dropped the phone. "You're under arrest," I said, trying to sound brave. "You can't hurt anyone anymore." He laughed. A quiet laugh. "You think bars stop the truth," he said. You think this ends with me? The line went dead. I sat there staring at the phone, my whole body cold. I did not tell anyone about the call that night. I didn't want to scare them more than they already were. But fear had already entered the house. The next morning, the bride woke up screaming. She said she had dreamed of him standing at the foot of her bed, smiling, holding the wedding ring. We tried to calm her down. We made tea. We spoke gently. We promised her she was safe. But safety felt like a lie. Later that day, we received another shock. The police called. They said the man had escaped. Not from the station. From the past. They had searched his records deeper and found something disturbing. Very disturbing. The name we knew him by was not his real name. The face we recognized was only one of many. He had been married before. More than once. And in every case, something terrible happened after the wedding. Disappeared people. Unsolved cases. Families broken apart. The room spun around me as I listened. The bride covered her ears, shaking her head over and over again. No, she cried. No, no, no. That was when the guilt hit her. She blamed herself. She said she should have listened to me. She said she should have asked more questions. She said she felt like she had invited danger into our home. I held her hands and told her it was not her fault. But deep inside I was afraid. Because the police said one more thing before they hung up. They said, there is a chance he planned more than just the wedding. That night, as everyone finally drifted into restless sleep, I stayed awake. I sat by the window, watching the street. Every car that passed made my heart jump. Every shadow looked like a man standing still. Just before dawn, I heard a soft knock at the door. 3 slow knocks. Careful. Patient. Everyone else was asleep. I stood up slowly and walked toward the door. My heart was beating so loudly I was sure it would wake the whole house. I reached for the handle. And just as I touched it, I heard his voice again, right on the other side. Open the door, he whispered. We need to finish what we started. My hand froze on the door handle. I could not breathe. Every part of my body screamed at me to run, to wake everyone up, to shout for help. But my feet would not move. The voice on the other side of the door was calm. Too calm. Like someone standing in their own home. Open the door, he whispered again. I know you're awake. I stepped back slowly, my heart pounding so hard it hurt. The house was silent behind me. Everyone was sleeping. No one knew what was happening just a few steps away. I warned you, I said quietly, my voice shaking. You will not come into this house. He laughed softly. You always were stubborn, he said. That's why I remember you. My stomach twisted. That meant he remembered everything. I grabbed my phone and dialed the police with shaking fingers. Before I could even speak, the knocking stopped. Silence. Pure silence. I stood there, holding my breath, listening for footsteps. Nothing. Just the sound of my own heart. I whispered into the phone, telling the officer what had happened. They told me to lock every door and window and wait. They said they were on the way. I did not move from that spot. Minutes passed like hours. Then I heard it. A soft sound near the back of the house. Glass. Breaking. I turned slowly. The sound came from the kitchen. My legs felt weak, but I forced myself forward, step by step. The moonlight coming through the window showed broken glass on the floor. Cold air rushed in from outside. He was inside. I wanted to scream, but no sound came out. Then I heard another sound. Footsteps. Slow. Heavy. Confident. I backed away, my hands shaking so badly I could barely hold my phone. I moved toward the living room, praying no one would wake up and walk into him. Don't hide, his voice echoed softly through the house. I just want to talk. Talk. That word made my blood run cold. I moved toward the couch where the bride was sleeping. She was curled up, her face peaceful for the first time since the wedding. I whispered her name softly, trying to wake her without making noise. Her eyes opened. She saw my face. She knew something was wrong. Before she could speak, a shadow fell across the wall. She froze. So did I. He stepped into the room slowly, his face half lit by the moonlight. He looked different now. The gentle smile was gone. What stood in front of us was the truth I had tried to hide from everyone. He looked at her and smiled. "There you are," he said softly. "My bride." She screamed. The sound filled the house. Lights turned on. Doors opened. People shouted. He took a step toward her. I stepped in front of her without thinking. "You will not touch her," I said, my voice stronger than I felt. His eyes burned into mine. "You already ruined everything," he said. "Why not let me finish?" Footsteps rushed down the hallway. Family members poured into the room, shouting his name, crying, asking what was happening. He backed away slowly, his eyes never leaving the bride. Police sirens wailed outside. He laughed again. "This family never listens," he said. "And that is why the truth always comes back." He ran. Straight toward the back door. Someone tried to grab him. He pushed past them. The door slammed open. Police lights flashed through the windows. Shouts filled the night. By the time officers rushed in, he was gone. Again. The house collapsed into chaos. Crying. Shaking. Fear. Anger. The bride collapsed into my arms, sobbing uncontrollably. "He came back," she cried. "He came back for me." I held her tightly, my own tears falling. The police searched the area for hours. They found nothing. No footprints. No trace. Just broken glass and broken trust. Before the officers left, one of them pulled me aside. "We found something near the back fence," he said quietly. He handed me a small object. The wedding ring. My heart dropped. Because that meant he had taken it off her finger before running. And that meant he was planning something else. Something far worse. As the sun began to rise, exhaustion pulled at my body, but fear kept me awake. I knew one thing for sure. He was not done with us. And the next time he came back, someone might not survive. No one left the house that morning. The sun rose, but it did not bring comfort. Its light only showed the damage more clearly. Broken glass on the kitchen floor. Scratches on the back door. Tear-stained faces sitting in silence. The wedding dress lay in a heap on the floor, stepped on, wrinkled, forgotten. It looked nothing like the dream everyone had imagined. The bride sat beside me, shaking, holding a cup of tea she did not drink. Her hands would not stop trembling. Every sound made her flinch. Every shadow made her turn her head. "He was standing right there," she kept whispering. "Right there." No one argued with her. The police came back later that morning. More officers. More questions. They took pictures. They checked the broken window. They asked if anyone had enemies, secrets, unfinished business. I watched their faces as they listened. Some believed me. Some did not. But fear does not need belief to grow. After the police left again, the house felt smaller. The walls felt closer. The air felt heavy. People whispered instead of speaking. Phones were checked every minute. Doors were locked and unlocked again, just to be sure. That afternoon, something worse happened. A package arrived. No return address. It was small. Light. The delivery man said nothing. He just dropped it at the door and walked away. No one wanted to touch it. I knew it was meant for me. I picked it up slowly and placed it on the table. Everyone gathered around, their faces pale. Inside the package was a single photograph. An old photograph. I felt dizzy as soon as I saw it. It was a picture from many years ago. A picture that should not exist anymore. A picture of a night I had tried to erase from my life. In the photo, a younger version of me stood in the background. My face was tense, afraid, and standing beside me was him. The room erupted in gasps. "How does he have this?" someone whispered. My throat felt dry. My hands shook. "He's been watching," I said quietly, "for a long time." There was something else in the package. A note. Only 6 words. "You can't hide the past." The bride started crying again, louder this time, like something inside her finally broke. Her mother held her tightly, rocking her back and forth. That was when I made a decision. I could not keep everything hidden anymore. That evening, when everyone gathered in the living room, I told them the full truth. Not just about recognizing his face. Not just about the old photo. But about what really happened all those years ago. The room went silent as I spoke. I told them about a wedding from the past. Not ours. Someone else's. A young woman who trusted the wrong man. A family that ignored the warnings. A night that ended with police lights and unanswered questions. I told them how he disappeared after that night. How people whispered. How no one ever proved anything. And how I had spent years waiting for the past to return. When I finished, no one spoke. Some looked shocked. Some looked angry. Some looked afraid of me. The bride finally lifted her head and looked at me through tears. "So you knew," she said softly. "You knew what he was capable of." "Yes," I whispered. "And I still failed to stop him sooner." She did not blame me. That hurt even more. That night, no one slept again. We took turns watching the doors and windows. Lights stayed on. Every sound made us jump. Just after midnight, the power went out. The house went dark. Someone screamed. Phones lit up the room with weak light. Outside, the street was quiet. Too quiet. Then we heard it. Footsteps on the roof. Slow. Heavy. Moving back and forth. The bride grabbed my arm so tightly it hurt. "He's here," she whispered. The footsteps stopped. Something heavy dropped down near the back of the house. A loud thud. Then silence. Seconds passed. Then a voice came through the darkness. "Low. Close." "I told you," he said softly. "This family never listens." And before anyone could move, a window shattered upstairs. The sound of breaking glass ripped through the house like thunder. Someone screamed my name. Someone else shouted for the lights. The bride clung to me, shaking so badly her teeth rattled. For a moment, no one moved. Fear glued us to the floor. Then chaos exploded. Footsteps pounded up the stairs. Doors flew open. Phones dropped. Someone tripped and fell, crying out in pain. The darkness made everything worse. Shadows stretched along the walls, twisting into shapes that made our hearts race. "He's upstairs," someone yelled. "No, don't go up there," another voice cried. But it was already too late. A loud crash echoed from the hallway above, followed by a slow dragging sound, like something heavy being pulled across the floor. Every sound felt closer than the last. Every second felt like the end. I forced myself to move. My legs felt weak, but I stepped forward anyway, my heart pounding so hard I thought it would burst. I grabbed the nearest flashlight and pointed it toward the stairs. The beam shook in my hand. At the top of the stairs, a bedroom door stood open. The window was shattered. Cold night air rushed inside, lifting the curtains like ghostly hands. Broken glass covered the floor, sparkling in the flashlight beam. But he was gone. Again. Police arrived minutes later, but it felt like hours. They searched every room, every corner, the roof, the yard, the street. Dogs were brought in. Lights flashed. Radios crackled. Nothing. No sign of him. Just broken glass, muddy footprints near the window, and a deep fear that settled into our bones. One officer pulled me aside. "He's not trying to hurt randomly," he said quietly. "He's playing with you. Trying to control you." I nodded slowly. "I know," I said. "He always does." That night, the bride was taken to the hospital. Not because she was hurt, but because she could not stop shaking. Her heart was racing, her breathing uneven. She kept repeating the same sentence over and over. "He said we need to finish what we started." Doctors gave her something to calm her down, but even as she slept, tears rolled down her cheeks. I sat beside her bed, holding her hand, watching the rise and fall of her chest. Guilt pressed down on me like a heavy weight. Every time he came back, it felt like my fault. Because he wasn't chasing her. He was chasing the truth. And the truth was still incomplete. Just before sunrise, a nurse came into the room and asked for me by name. Her face was pale, nervous. "There's a call for you at the desk," she said. "They said it's urgent." My heart sank. I walked slowly down the hallway, every step heavy with dread. The phone felt cold when I picked it up. "This is the police," the voice said. "We found something you need to see." They drove me to a small station on the edge of town. Inside a plain room, they placed several items on a table. Old documents, photos, newspaper clippings, and one familiar object. The wedding ring. But it was no longer clean. Inside the band, scratched deep into the metal, were tiny letters. A date. A date from many years ago. The same date as the night from my past I had never spoken about fully. "That date appears in multiple cold cases," the officer said. "Every case involves him. And every case involves a wedding." My hands trembled as I covered my mouth. "So he marries them," I whispered. "Then destroys everything." "Yes," the officer said. "And you were the first person who ever tried to stop him." My chest tightened. That was when they showed me the last thing. A recorded message. They warned me before playing it. His voice filled the room. Calm. Clear. Confident. "You can run," he said. "You can call the police. You can hide behind your family. But weddings bind souls. And souls remember. She belongs to me now. And so does the truth you buried." The message ended. I felt dizzy. Because I finally understood something I had been afraid to admit. The night from my past, the one I never fully explained, was not just connected to him. It was the reason he chose my granddaughter. He was not just haunting us. He was taking revenge. As I left the station, my phone buzzed again. A message. No number. Just words. "Next time, someone dies." And in that moment, I realized something terrifying. The warnings were over. The real nightmare was about to begin. The message stayed on my phone long after the screen went dark. I did not delete it. I could not. It felt like proof that this was real, that I was not imagining anything, that the nightmare had fully crossed into our lives. My hands shook as I put the phone back into my bag. Outside the police station, the sky was turning light, but the day felt darker than the night before. When I returned to the hospital, the bride was awake. Her eyes were open, staring at the ceiling, empty and tired. She looked smaller somehow, like fear had taken something from her. "You left," she whispered when she saw me. "I had to," I said gently. "I didn't want to scare you." She turned her head slowly and looked at me. "He's not going to stop, is he?" I wanted to lie. I wanted to say yes, that it was over, that the police would protect us, that she was safe now. But I could not lie anymore. "No," I said softly. "He won't." She closed her eyes, and a single tear slipped down the side of her face. Later that day, the family gathered again, this time in the hospital waiting room. Everyone looked exhausted. Some were angry. Some were terrified. Some were quiet in a way that scared me more than shouting ever could. I told them everything the police had shown me. The ring. The date. The message. Silence swallowed the room when I finished. So what do we do now? Someone finally asked. No one answered. Because deep down, we all knew the same truth. Running would not help. Hiding would not help. He already knew too much. That evening, the police decided it was no longer safe for us to stay together in one house. They said it made us an easy target. They suggested splitting up, staying in different places, changing routines. The bride begged not to be left alone. So she came home with me. That night, she slept in my room, curled up like a child, holding my hand even after she fell asleep. I stayed awake, listening to every sound, every creak of the house, every passing car outside. Around midnight, my phone buzzed again. This time, it was a photo. Taken outside my house. Taken minutes ago. The front door. I felt my blood run cold. Then another message appeared. I'm closer than you think. I rushed to the window and pulled the curtain back just a little. The street was empty. No people. No cars. But the porch light was broken. I did not sleep at all that night. The next morning, something even worse happened. The bride disappeared. Her bed was empty. Her phone was on the nightstand. The back door was unlocked. I screamed for help, my voice cracking as the house filled with panic once again. Police were called. Officers arrived quickly, searching the area, asking questions, checking cameras. Then one officer held up a piece of paper they found on the kitchen table. It had been folded carefully, written in neat handwriting. It said, "She came with me. Now you have to come too." My knees gave out. The room spun. I had tried to protect her. I had warned them. And now, the thing I feared most had happened. As the police rushed around me, my phone buzzed one last time. A location. A place from my past. The same place where everything first went wrong all those years ago. And I knew then, with terrifying clarity, that this was never about the wedding. It was about me. And if I went there, I might not come back alive. My hands would not stop shaking as I stared at the location on my phone. I knew that place. I had not been there in decades, but my body remembered it before my mind did. My chest tightened. My mouth went dry. My legs felt weak, like they were already trying to refuse the journey. The police told me not to go. They said it was too dangerous. They said it was clearly a trap. They said they would handle it. But how could they understand? That place was not just a location. It was where everything began. And if he had taken her there, it meant only one thing. He wanted me to see the truth I had buried. I sat down slowly, my heart breaking in a way I had never felt before. The image of her empty bed replayed in my mind again and again. Her shoes still by the door. Her jacket hanging where she left it. She did not go willingly. I knew that. I felt it in my bones. The police searched the area around the house. They checked neighbors' cameras. They asked questions. But I could see it in their eyes. Time was slipping away. I walked into the bedroom and sat on the edge of the bed where she had slept beside me. The pillow still smelled like her hair. I pressed it to my face and cried quietly, ashamed that fear and guilt were tearing me apart at the same time. "This is my fault," I whispered. "If I had spoken sooner. If I had forced them to listen. If I had told the full story years ago. Maybe she would be safe right now." An officer came in and knelt in front of me. He spoke gently, but firmly. "We need you to tell us everything," he said. "About that place. About what really happened back then." I closed my eyes. The memories came rushing back, sharp and painful. I told him about the night from my past. About how I went there with someone I trusted. About the shouting. The fear. The moment I realized I was standing too close to something dangerous. I told him how I ran. How I hid. How I stayed silent when questions were asked. I told him how someone else paid the price for that silence. When I finished, the officer looked at me for a long time. "That's why he chose her," he said quietly. He wanted to punish you. I nodded slowly. Yes, I whispered. And he knew a wedding would bring us all together. The police made a plan. They said they would go to the location. They said they would not let me go alone. They said I had to trust them. But deep inside, I knew something they didn't. He would not show himself if I wasn't there. That evening, as the sun dipped low, we drove out. The road felt endless. Trees closed in on both sides. My heart beat faster with every mile. I stared out the window, watching familiar shapes appear in the distance. The old building came into view. Abandoned. Broken. Silent. It looked exactly the same. The police told me to stay in the car. I tried. I really did. But when my phone buzzed again, I knew I had no choice. A message appeared. Come inside. Or she pays for your silence again. I opened the car door before anyone could stop me. Officers shouted my name. Hands reached for me. But I pulled away, walking toward the building like my feet were no longer mine. The door creaked open. Inside, it smelled like dust and rust and old fear. Please, I whispered. Let her go. My voice echoed. Then I heard it. Footsteps. Slow. Deliberate. A light flicked on deeper inside the building. And then I heard her voice. Weak. Crying. Calling my name. I rushed forward, tears blinding me. Hold on, I cried. I'm here. And then he stepped out of the shadows. Smiling. Holding something in his hand. Something that made my blood run cold. Now, he said calmly, we can finally finish this. And at that moment, I realized the truth he wanted me to face would destroy us all. My legs almost gave out when I saw what he was holding. It was an old object, rusted and worn, something I had not seen in years. The moment my eyes landed on it, the memory slammed into me so hard I felt dizzy. My ears rang. My chest burned. He noticed my reaction and smiled wider. You remember, he said calmly. I knew you would. Behind him, tied to a chair, was my granddaughter. Her face was pale. Her eyes were swollen from crying. Her mouth was covered, but when she saw me, her eyes filled with fresh tears. She shook her head slightly, begging me not to come closer. I'm here, I said, my voice breaking. Please, don't hurt her. He laughed softly. Hurt her, he said. I didn't bring her here to hurt her. I brought her here so you could finally tell the truth. The door behind me slammed shut. The sound echoed through the empty building. I jumped, spinning around, but when I turned back, he was still standing there, calm, in control, like he had all the time in the world. You see, he continued, slowly walking in a circle, people think silence means innocence. They think if they don't speak, nothing follows them. He stopped in front of me. But silence leaves scars, he whispered. And scars remember. Police sirens wailed faintly in the distance. Far away. Too far. I took a step forward. This is between you and me, I said. Let her go. He shook his head. No, he said. This started with you watching and saying nothing. It ends with you speaking. My hands trembled. The old building seemed to breathe around us. Dust floated in the air. The light flickered. Every sound felt louder than it should. He pointed to the object in his hand. Do you remember that night? He asked. I closed my eyes. I remembered everything. I remembered the shouting. The fear. The way I froze instead of screaming. I remembered how someone begged for help. And how I did nothing. Yes, I whispered. My granddaughter let out a muffled sob. He turned toward her. She doesn't know, does she? He said. She doesn't know who you really are. Stop, I cried. Please. He ignored me. Do you know why I married you? He asked her softly. She shook her head, tears streaming down her face. Because I needed you, he said. I needed you close. I needed you to trust me. So I could bring us back here. My heart felt like it was tearing in two. You planned this from the beginning, I said. He nodded. From the moment I saw your face at that family gathering, he said. The moment your eyes widened. That's when I knew you remembered me too. He stepped closer to me. You ruined my life back then, he whispered. And now I'm returning the favor. Police lights suddenly flashed through a crack in the boarded window. He noticed. His smile faded slightly. They're closer than I expected, he said calmly. He moved toward my granddaughter and placed a hand on her shoulder. She cried out in fear. Don't! I screamed. Please. I'll tell them everything. He paused. Slowly, he turned toward me. Everything? He asked. Yes, I cried. I'll tell them everything. What happened? What I saw. What I didn't do. He studied my face. Then he smiled again. Good, he said. That's all I ever wanted. Suddenly, shouting echoed outside. Heavy footsteps. Police voices calling out commands. He stepped back, raising his hands slightly, but his eyes never left mine. Remember this moment, he said softly. Because no matter what happens next, the truth is already out. A loud crash echoed as officers forced the door open. Lights flooded the room. Shouts filled the air. Drop it. Get on the ground. Everything happened at once. My granddaughter screamed. I rushed toward her. And just as an officer lunged forward, he did something no one expected. He shoved the chair. Hard. My granddaughter fell sideways, hitting the floor. I screamed her name and ran to her, my heart stopping as I saw her lying still. The man laughed once. Then gunshots rang out. The sound was deafening. When the noise stopped, the room went silent. Too silent. I knelt beside my granddaughter, shaking her gently. Please, I whispered. Please wake up. Her eyes fluttered. She gasped. She was alive. Relief crashed over me so hard I collapsed, sobbing. Behind me, officers shouted orders, radios crackled, handcuffs clicked. But as they pulled him away, bleeding but still breathing, he turned his head toward me one last time. Our eyes met. And with a weak smile, he mouthed 3 words that froze my blood. Chapter isn't over. And in that moment I knew. Even with him captured, the story was far from finished. The hospital room smelled like medicine and fear. Machines beeped softly. White curtains moved gently with the air. I sat beside the bed, holding her hand, afraid to let go even for a second. Her fingers were warm. That was the only thing keeping me breathing. Doctors came in and out. Police officers stood by the door. Family members waited in the hallway, whispering prayers, crying quietly, afraid to hope too much. They said she was lucky. They said the fall could have been worse. They said she would wake up. But every second felt like a year. I stared at her face, pale and still, and my heart broke in ways I didn't know were possible. I kept thinking about the wedding dress. The flowers. The dreams she had talked about with such excitement. All of it gone. Because of my silence. Because of my past. After some time, a police officer asked me to step outside. My legs felt heavy as I followed him down the hall. The moment the door closed behind us, my strength disappeared. They're holding him, the officer said quietly. He's alive. Injured, but alive. I closed my eyes. Alive. That word scared me more than if they had said anything else. There's more, the officer continued. He confessed to some things. But not everything. I looked at him. He wants to speak to you. My heart dropped. No, I whispered. I can't. He refuses to talk unless you're there, the officer said. He says the truth belongs to you. I shook my head, tears filling my eyes. I've already lost so much, I said. I can't face him again. The officer hesitated, then said something that made my blood run cold. He says if you don't come, someone else will pay for it. I felt the world tilt. Someone else. Another innocent life. I agreed. They took me to a small room in the hospital, guarded on both sides. He lay on the bed, bandaged, pale, but still wearing that same look in his eyes. Calm. Controlled. Like he was the one in charge. When he saw me, he smiled. You came, he said softly. I knew you would. Why? I asked, my voice breaking. Why her? Why my family? He laughed weakly. Because you lived with your silence, he said. And I lived with the damage. You could have walked away, I said. You could have let the past stay buried. He shook his head slowly. Some things don't stay buried, he said. They grow. I clenched my fists. What do you want from me? I asked. He looked at me carefully. A confession, he said. Not to the police. To the world. I felt sick. You want to destroy what's left of my family, I said. No, he replied. I want the truth to breathe. I stood up, shaking. You don't deserve anything, I said. Not after what you've done. He leaned his head back slightly and whispered, then check your phone. My heart skipped. I pulled it out with trembling hands. A message appeared. A picture. It showed a familiar place. Another family member. Unaware. Smiling. Alive. For now. My knees nearly buckled. You see, he said calmly. I planned everything carefully. I always do. Rage exploded inside me. You're a monster, I cried. No, he said softly. I'm a mirror. Security rushed in as my voice rose. But he had already said what he wanted. As they wheeled him away, he looked back at me one last time. You have one choice, he said. Speak. Or watch history repeat itself. I rushed back to the hospital room, my heart racing, my mind screaming. I looked at her lying there, still unconscious, still innocent. I knew what I had to do. The next morning, cameras filled the room. Police. Reporters. Family members. My hands shook as I stood in front of them. I opened my mouth to speak, to finally tell the truth. But before I could say the first word, my phone rang. And when I answered it, everything I thought I knew shattered again. The phone slipped from my hand and hit the floor. I did not need to hear the voice clearly to know who it was. The room went silent. Cameras stopped clicking. Reporters leaned forward. Police officers reached for their radios. My heart was beating so fast I thought it would burst. One officer picked up the phone, listened for a few seconds, then slowly looked at me. It's over, he said quietly. Those two words felt unreal. I rushed back into the hospital room, my legs weak, my breath uneven. I stood beside the bed, staring at her face, praying silently, begging God for mercy, forgiveness, anything. Then her fingers moved. At first, I thought I imagined it. Then she opened her eyes. Just a little. I gasped and grabbed her hand. You're safe, I whispered through tears. You're safe. Her eyes slowly focused on my face. She tried to speak, but her voice was weak. Is he gone? She asked. Yes, I said, crying openly now. He can't hurt anyone ever again. What happened next broke something heavy inside me. Later that day, the police confirmed it. The man had tried to run. Not from the hospital. From his past. When officers went to the location he had sent in his last message, they arrived just in time. The other family member was rescued unharmed. But when they returned to question him again, he had made a final choice. He would never speak again. The truth was safe. But it came at a cost. I still stood before the cameras that afternoon. Not because he forced me, but because I chose to. I told everything. I told them about the night long ago. I told them about my fear. I told them about my silence. I did not hide. I did not excuse myself. I spoke so that no other family would ignore a warning. So no grandmother would be called crazy for feeling danger. So no bride would learn too late that love without truth is a trap. When I finished, the room was quiet. Some people cried. Some people looked away. But I felt lighter than I had in years. Weeks later, the house felt different. Still scarred. Still quiet. But healing had started. The wedding never happened. But my granddaughter lived. She healed slowly. Nightmares came and went. Some days were harder than others. But she was alive. She laughed again. She held my hand again without fear. One evening, as we sat together watching the sun go down, she looked at me and said something I will carry forever. Thank you for warning them. Even when no one listened. That was when I finally forgave myself. If you are watching this right now, let me say this clearly. If something feels wrong, if your heart is warning you, if an old voice inside you is telling you to speak, do not stay silent. Sometimes the warning we ignore is the lesson we pay for. Thank you for listening to this story. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss another emotional and powerful story like this. And please tell me in the comments which part of the country you are watching from. I truly want to know who is here with me. Because stories like this remind us of one truth we should never forget. Some warnings are not meant to be polite. They are meant to save lives.